Below is the full English translation. I have not summarized, omitted, or altered the storyline in any way. If there are any expressions I had to slightly adjust to ensure it would make sense in English, I will explain them in Japanese at the very end. My mother's childhood home was one of those old, wealthy farming families out in the countryside. Partly because it was in a rural area, the property was huge, and the house itself was big, complete with its own storehouse. Until I entered junior high, I used to spend about 10 days there every summer vacation. Being a pale kid from the city, I could never really fit in with the local children, so I ended up playing every day with my cousin, the son of my mother's older brother, who was the same age as me. This guy was basically treated like the spoiled rich kid, so he didn't have any real friends either. But since the family estate was enormous, just playing within its grounds was more than enough to keep us entertained. One afternoon, we were playing in the storehouse, which was somewhat cooler even during the day. The storehouse had 2 floors, but only half of the first floor was set up as a tatami room. The back half of the first floor and the entire second floor were used as storage. I can't recall exactly what we were doing for fun at the time, but at some point, we ended up inside the closet next to the tokonoma, the decorative alcove. While we were messing around, we discovered that the board in the very back of that closet could be removed. When we took it out and looked down, we saw a narrow passage that an adult probably couldn't have fit into. Since we were both still small, curiosity got the better of us, and we decided to crawl in. The passage went for about 3 meters before it was blocked off. There was some netting stretched across, so we couldn't get through. I could feel a breeze coming from the other side, so I figured it must lead somewhere under the storehouse. We were about to turn back when we realized that part of the passage floor could also be removed. We quickly lifted the board, peeked down, and found a surprisingly large space lying beneath us. We shone our flashlight inside and saw that, unexpectedly, it looked like an actual room. It wasn't pitch black. From the corner of the room, a faint light, probably from outside, was seeping in. Conveniently, there was a chest of drawers right below where we were, so we used it as a stepping stone and climbed down. Once we got down and looked around the entire room, it turned out to be a bare space of about 6 tatami mats in size. There was just that single chest of drawers, which we had used for footing, something like a small writing desk, and a few zabuton cushions stacked up. It smelled pretty strongly of mold and dust, but it wasn't especially dirty. We were excited to discover such an unexpected place and started searching every corner of the room. The faint light we'd noticed before came from 4 small vents that were lined up high on one wall. These vents were covered with netting, so we couldn't see beyond them, but it felt like they opened up to the area beneath the storehouse. On the opposite wall, there was a small door that looked like a miniature fusuma. By crawling through it, we found ourselves outside the room. It was like the kind of entrance you might see in a tea ceremony room, small enough that you couldn't enter or exit while standing fully upright. Right after going through, there was a narrow staircase that we tried climbing, but it was blocked at the top. Thinking about it later, that stairway probably led to somewhere in the back of the storehouse used for storage. With no other way out, we headed back into the room and started rummaging through the chest of drawers. Inside, we found a jumble of clothing, dishes, and some paper toys, but nothing that stood out as particularly interesting. Next, we decided to check the small writing desk. The desk had 2 drawers, one above the other. The top drawer held some stationery and such. The bottom drawer wouldn't open at first, maybe it was warped, but after tugging on it a bit, we got it open. Inside, there were several notebook-like bundles, sheets of paper sewn together. They seemed to be diaries, but we were only in 2nd grade, and the kanji were too difficult for us to decipher. We started flipping through them casually until we came across a few photographs stuck between the pages. They were old black and white photos of various sizes, and only the first one was large. This bigger one looked like a group photo. There was a man with an impressive beard wearing a formal kimono and hakama, along with several other men and women. The bearded man looked familiar. He was young, but he was definitely the person in the framed photo in the Buddhist altar room. He was my great-grandfather. Next to him was a woman who was probably his wife, my great-grandmother. In front of them were 2 young girls. Surrounding them were people who looked like tenant farmers. "Hey, isn't that Grandma?" My cousin said it before I could, but I was thinking the same thing. Back then, my grandmother was still alive. The girl in the photo was definitely young, but she had the same features I recognized. Still, there was something strange. That girl had an identical twin in the same photo. Wait, was Grandma a twin? But before we gave it too much thought, we turned our attention to the remaining photographs. The next one seemed to show the same girl, now in what looked like a girl's school uniform. But here, There was no second person. From that point on, there were more photos of the same woman, always by herself. Her wedding photo, where she wore a traditional bunken Takashimata hairstyle, then a picture holding a baby, probably my uncle, my cousin's father. As we flipped through each photo, she got older and older, until she started looking like the grandmother we knew. With nothing else to see, we stretched out on the floor of that room and talked for a while. We were completely spellbound by the idea of a room only we knew about and felt no fear at all. "Let's make this our secret base," we said, with that classic childish excitement, and left the room. That summer, as long as we were in the house, we snuck into that room to play or eat snacks every so often. Right up until it was time for me to go home, and even afterward, I never told anyone about that room. It was just common sense to my child's mind that a secret base was supposed to be kept secret. Then, a year later, I visited that house again. Just like always. My cousin, along with the rest of the family, welcomed me enthusiastically as usual. I'm sure we were both excited to play together again that summer. "Hey, let's go to the secret base tomorrow," I whispered. The moment I said that, my cousin's face went pale. "Nah, let's just go catch some beetles," he replied, abruptly rejecting me. I was pretty disappointed, but since I was tired, I didn't make a big deal out of it and went straight to bed. From the next day on, every time I tried bringing up the secret base, my cousin dodged or made excuses. Eventually, I lost my temper and confronted him. Looking embarrassed, he finally said, "Grandma." She got mad at me. She told me never to go in there. At the time, I was so angry at him for spilling our secret to someone else that I never asked why Grandma had said such a thing, nor did I even think about it. So that summer, we never once went back to that room. In fact, I never set foot in it again after that. I did try sneaking in once, but there was a big box in the closet, so I couldn't get inside. But I was still a kid, so the whole thing slowly faded from my memory anyway. When I was in my third year of junior high, my grandmother passed away. At her funeral, for some reason, I suddenly remembered what happened in that room. I felt bad for my cousin, who was really down, so I asked my mother, my grandmother's own daughter, instead. Was Grandma a twin? I was referring to the photos we found in that room. But Mom had never heard anything of the sort. She just looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" I asked my uncle and other relatives the same question, but they had no idea either. Everyone insisted Grandma had been an only daughter who married a man into the family, and that was it. But I couldn't believe it. Once I grew older, it dawned on me that the room might have been some sort of zashiki-ru, like a hidden room used to confine someone. The other girl in the photo, who was the spitting image of a young grandma, could she have been the one in that room? Granted, it's hard to imagine such an inhumane scenario, like something out of a cheap novel, happening post-war, but still. As I got older, I ended up visiting that house less and less, and my cousin and I grew somewhat distant. Of course, the story of the hidden room is only my own speculation, but I'm absolutely certain that room existed. I didn't only go there once. In that summer of second grade, the two of us snuck in there many times. And yet, my cousin now says, I was just a kid back then, so I don't remember anything. He even claims he doesn't recall me grilling him the next year about that room. His memory of everything related to that room has either vanished or he's acting like it never happened. To this day, I still feel a lingering sense of unease about it all, but there's no way for me to dig any deeper. The storehouse has already been demolished, and there's no way to uncover the truth behind that room or that other girl in the photos.